I was gonna do an Engelmann spruce, and there was a technique in there that I wanted to try, but over like the winter I fell in love with deciduous trees, and I'd done like for demos before for the club, I'd done a spruce and I'd done a bristlecone, so I changed it because also I got this tree in like 2014 from Jerry, so who just passed away. So I thought it'd be this could be a cool tree to work on. So I don't know a ton about aspens. I'll give a little background on. I know there's a collecting kind of like a class, or some people are going collecting in the near like future or next couple weeks or something, I think I saw. And so I don't know if aspens are an option in that, but what I've found with aspens when I've collected them is I collected them in the fall after they had dropped their leaves, or if you can collect them over winter, you could do that. As long as they're dormant, I collect them, and I have found that like with aspens, right, we know that they have these tap roots and then they throw up a sucker and a tree grows, right? And so if you're up in the mountains in the fall, when it's just beautiful and yellow and you see like maybe there's a little splotch up there that's red, probably all those trees are connected, right? And so what I found with collecting aspens is that they have no fine roots, right? And so I will sever the taproot, I'll put it in pumice. Sometimes in the spring, I did a test last year where I pulled, it started growing, so it's like, oh, it must have good fine roots. I pull it away, there's nothing. It's like where the cut is, it had just started to callus over. So it's like, well, I'll pot it up and then, or pull it out, I put it in like into a grow box, and then all year it kept leaves, it grew. So it's like, okay, this year I'll repot it. So I go to repot it and it still didn't have any roots. So but the tree was alive. So when it comes to that, I don't know, but it seems that if you collect them when they are dormant, that you can have some success with it. So with this tree also, the first time that I repotted it, I had a bigger container and I put it in Kanuma because they kind of grow in like, I don't know, very acidic kind of soil in the mountain. So I put it in Kanuma. And then last year, that was maybe 2015. So after 5 years, it's like, okay, I'm gonna repot this tree. And I put it in Akadama, straight Akadama. And I just let it go last year to see how it did, and it did fine. So I think moving forward, all the trees that I've repotted after I repotted this one, I put them all in Akadama, just pure Akadama. So that's what I'm doing with this. Okay, so at one point with this tree too, so this is a reason why I'm bringing this in, because like the first time I styled it, like maybe it was more upright, right? And then a squirrel came in and ate a branch off of this, and so it died. And so I went to redesign it, and then I took a branch here that was up a little higher and I compressed it. So when I was looking at this, it's like, well, I kind of made a conifer, you know, with like bringing everything down and compressing it. So now in this rendition, what I want to do is I want to turn it back into an aspen tree more than a conifer, right? So like some of these internodes are long, so maybe we'll shorten some of this, but I want to start bringing stuff up and out. And this like comes up and then I dropped it back down and I brought it over, and it's like, well, maybe this needs to come up and elongate it, right? Because this is like a very slender, kind of pretty trunk. And so maybe you like extend this up still, right? Instead of compressing it, which I did. And I don't know, part of it, with compressing it, it's like now like this is on top of this and this is on top of this, right? So it's not sustainable. And so when everything leaves out, it's just like this big glop of leaves, right? So it's like we need to make room for this. So that's kind of what I'm looking to do tonight with this tree is turn it into an aspen again instead of instead of a type of conifer. So, are there any questions? Feel free, like, just why I'm working or why I'm talking, just feel free to ask questions or anything. So,
not to go back to the collecting part, but do you let them freeze over the winter, or do you keep them in like warm beds?
Sure. So if I collect these in the fall, anything I collect probably September on, I either put in a greenhouse on heat beds, or I have heat beds outside too. But I like the trees that don't have any fine roots, I just heel them in. So it's like I have a heat bed with pumice, I just put the tree in there, keep the roots at 80 degrees, and I have 5 of those, so my electric bill is like through the roof. But it seems to work. So yeah, I don't let them freeze. Anything late in the year, like with roots that are iffy, I'll either protect them in a greenhouse or I'll put them on a heat bed. So, any other? Yes, sir.
Are the branches on the left alive or not?
These are all dead.
These are dead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's like, okay, how do you, like this tells a story here, right? And this too, so it's like, well, do we put branches on this side? Or it's like, is it something, do you push, like when you're talking about design with this, it's like, do you just push everything this way? I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how this is gonna come out. I just know that too, on the back here, like there's nothing, right? This is very two-dimensional. So it's like, I wanna make it more three-dimensional, and I also wanna to probably take this and bring it up, right? So we'll elongate this, okay? But not too long, because if you take something here and the tree's up here, it's like maybe that feels a little odd, right? So we'll just kind of play it by ear. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Any back budding to be expected on the trunk ever or not?
No, I don't believe so. On here, nothing, right? And even on these like longer branches, you don't get a lot of back budding, I haven't found. Does anyone else here like worked with aspens a lot? And have you found it, Larry, that you get back budding on it, or?
If I prune the tip off, it's got smaller buds and branches behind it, they'll grow out more.
Sure.
So I take the lead out.
Sure. So that's part of what we'll do here. It's like pruning back. It's like, okay, this is really strong here, right? And it's pushing the catkins right now, but it's like, okay, we want to put more energy into this so we can cut back here, right? So, yeah.
Todd, is that one, does it sucker on you?
Sure, it does. This suckers, I think I pruned them all off, but in the back here, it'll throw suckers. So I've always pruned them off, but I also thought, with aspen, if you had one tree and you started getting suckers off of roots, you could make, I don't know, it could be like a fun design where you make you let the tree make a natural little forest, could be an option. Okay.
Sorry, last question. Does this one have roots or no? Like, does it have a good root, like fine roots?
This one had fine roots. Yeah, this one had fine roots. But too, like Jerry, I don't know how long ago Jerry had collected it, but when I had it, it had fine roots. And so putting it into a bonsai container wasn't that bad. And two, with this, like I approached it, so I guess I'm talking like more about aspen because they're still kind of a mystery, right? It's like we don't know a lot about them other than people say you can't grow them for more than 5 or 6 years and then they die, okay? So this one, which I don't know, I don't believe that. So, but I approached this like deciduous trees too. I just repotted some this last weekend in a class we had, and I washed the roots on it, all right? When we put this into this container, Graham, were you there when we were there? So we washed the roots on this too. So I just did this as a test. It's like I'll treat it like other deciduous. I'll wash the roots, put it in straight akadama and see what it does. So, any other questions? Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do when we're looking here, I need to move this branch up. I need to move this branch up too, because see how straight this is? This is really straight, and I don't know. So that moves, but it's a little scary. So what I may do here is I'll put a guy wire, or I'll wire these 2 branches. I'll put a guy wire through here and maybe run it up to this piece of deadwood here and see if I can move this, okay? All right, but first I'm gonna wire this. Can you hear me when I talk just like this? All right, so maybe I can do this too, because one thing, if you look at this and when you come up after, if you want to look, there are wire scars on here, right? From when I'd wired it before, wire bit in. So there's a fresh one right here, but there's wire scars on this, okay? And so that's where wire bit in. But all those, like the wire scar, it turns black. Like it does on conifer, you know, and with conifers, like it barks up after you have wire scars. This, it turns black. And so there are wire scars like all on this that just kind of created like the texture here. And so it's not like a Japanese maple where you get a wire scar and then your branches in front, you know, it's like it's gonna always have wire scars. This kind of, it barks up afterwards, so. I don't know, so with that, I'm gonna use copper on this. I brought aluminum, but it's like, I'm gonna use copper and, I don't know, I don't worry as much about letting wire bite in on aspens as I do other deciduous trees. Yes?
How long did the old wires stay?
So by the middle, it's the same as deciduous. Like if you wire it and then within like 1 year, it starts biting in, okay? So I may not need, I might have to do something else. I was gonna do a hook on here to wrap this, but I think I'm gonna wire this and this together instead. So I'm gonna use 8 on this. Because I'm gonna try to, when I wire this before this branch was up, I was able to bring it down and around, so it was pretty flexible. At this point, when it's growing, I'm not sure how flexible it is, so if something bad happens here, then we'll just go to plan B, which we don't know yet, so. There's always gotta be a plan B, right?
That's encouraging to know that.
What, that there's a plan B?
Yes.
Let's see if we can stay away from it. So here, I'm gonna go underneath.
Todd, do you normally go directly from the wire to the bark, or do you do the raffia thing on some trees, but not this one?
So on this one, on deciduous, all right, so when you're making big bends, depending on like the species of tree, right? So when you're talking about raffia, are you talking about junipers or?
That's my practice with junipers, but I was wondering specifically on this aspen, why you would not use raffia. What's
Because
choice?
I think it's flexible enough. That's what I think.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like junipers, I'll use raffia. Pines I don't very often, but if I do use raffia on like limber pines or, I guess that's mainly it. Limber pines, I always use dry raffia instead of wet raffia. And then there's a couple other species I'll use dry raffia on. But usually like deciduous, if you're using like big wire, then, like on this, we're using copper and I'm not too worried about any scarring versus like Japanese maples. Because on Japanese maples, if you're using big wire to make a bend, then I'll wrap it with paper towels. Like you wrap paper towel on it and that'll help protect the. All right, so let's just see. Let's see what we have flexibility wise. So that moves. So too, see like from the side here, see how far out front the apex is? So I think it'd be nice if we could bring this right back into here and elongate it some, so.
When you're designing deciduous like that, when you think about the apex, do you still sort of follow that same idea that it needs to come back, like resolving towards the viewer, or is that not as critical?
I mean, it depends on like which direction the apex goes.
Okay.
But on this, like I want the apex like further back, partly because if we have all this foliage here and we have this foliage here, it's below, it's right on top of it, so this will suffer some, but. Let's see. So here, so I'm going here counterclockwise, so as I'm pushing this kind of up, I'm rotating too, right? I'm here with my forefinger and thumb, I'm kind of rotating with the wire. So one thing too, when you have your collecting excursion, what are you calling it?
It's just a workshop.
Workshop, collecting workshop. So the aspens, and I held myself to the same like law, that when I dug aspens the first time, I didn't dig the best ones I saw, right? I dug ones that were okay or fair, but any one that I thought was like, this is a great aspen, I didn't dig because it was my first time really digging an aspen. And it's like, I don't want to try to dig the best aspen and then fail on the first try. So it's like you have to like dig something if you're going to do it, and it's like, don't dig the best one because you have to like learn from it, right? And see like, what did I do wrong? What could I do better? How is digging it? You know, it's like, how does the tree react? What do I have to do better? So, and I've made that mistake before, and that's why I don't do it now, where it's like, when I first started collecting trees, and it's like, you get up there and you find something great, and it's, you know, it's so good that you can't pass it by, and then you dig it, and then it's dead, right? So. All right, so we have nothing here. Right? We can push this branch back there. We could push this branch back there. But there is nothing here. So I wonder if actually, do we push part of this back down in here? All right, that was. And then we can have something in the background on this side. Okay. This is here, so. So all these now that we're coming down, right, I'm gonna push all of them up first, right? So it's gonna go up and out. Where before, the last time I designed this tree, I brought everything down like a conifer. That's one thing too, when you're doing, you know, it's like, who said all their trees are garbage? Did you say that? Did you say that?
Whoa, I didn't say garbage.
Well, not garbage, but they're lame. Sorry, I'm sorry about that. But it's like when you're designing, like it's always good, it's like you can go back and relook at things and, you know, assess and change and. All right, so there's that. So I'm gonna bring this up.
I'm good at that.
Pardon?
I was really good at killing plants.
Well, we all have been. All right, I'm gonna push this back. So I'm gonna anchor for this branch, I'm gonna anchor right here and see if I can get a little movement out of this so it's not so straight. So here, I'm anchoring on a piece of deadwood right here. And when I come right here, the end of the wire is down. So it's not how I had it before. It was facing up, and this is live. And if this moves, the tip of this could, cut into your trunk. I don't want that. So I'm moving it down so it's just on dead. All right, so right here is where there's a really big bite where the wire was before. So I want to stay out of that, which means I'm probably gonna make that turn sharp and then elongate my wire here. All right, so we'll see if I can get any movement. If not, I'm going to use a guide wire. I'm going to use a guide wire. So I'm just going to use a little piece of rubber. And then we'll run our guy wire from here. I'm going to run it right in here. So I'm gonna run this right here. All right, let's see how this goes. Because too, when I first did this, like this branch was a lot more pliable than it is right now, right? Let's see if I can get some more. Graham, can you hold this? All right, let's see if we can make that work. Thanks. All right. So I'm just adjusting these because I need to make room. Maybe this actually comes back. Because see how this branch emerges on the back side of this trunk? It's back there, but then it was up front. So I'm gonna actually see if I can push for structure. It's like, can we push this back here? Since the branch emerges on the back, let's keep it in the back, right? So there's like a structural hierarchy here. And it's like, this is really long. So I'm not going to cut this off until I'm able to move this. Because that could have been part of my problem when I initially designed this, was that I was taking this branch and trying to bring it forward, but then there's all these other branches here that are right on top of it. So now it's like, okay, we have to, if we're gonna fix this, and as I was moving it forward, it's like, well, wait, I'm still in the same predicament. So now let's see if this will help. And this is a bigger branch, so I'm gonna pull this down and we'll keep this up, which means now that this can come sit in here. Right? And then all of a sudden, nothing is sitting on top of something else. So that's part, like too, when you're setting structure and you're doing design, like one thing I'm always looking at, it's like deciduous and conifers. It's like when you can, it's like this emerges below this branch and this branch emerges below this branch. So it's like, well, we should, and this branch is behind this branch and this branch is behind this. So we should keep everything, what's here, keep it below what's above it, and keep it behind what's above it and what's in front of it. So it all kind of makes sense. All right, so some of this is long, so I'm gonna start we'll prune some of this off and we'll wire this out, this little pad, and then that'll help figure out what the rest of this is gonna look like. So what I'm saying here is I'm pruning this, or there are, like Larry was talking, like I pruned something here and then this had gone out, right? I pruned this and then this had started growing. So it's like when you prune buds that are further back in, they started to grow, like right here, right? I pruned this and now we have this and then this elongated.
Is this still completely dormant or is it starting to push anything?
I mean, it's starting to go right now. Yeah, and so that's the funny thing with aspens. Like here, it's like catkins. These little pods that come down, they're beautiful. But this has been outside this all winter, and it's already growing. So.
On a heat pad or just?
On the ground.
Just on the ground.
Just on the ground, yep. Yep. So here, I'm just looking for what's alive. Take this out. Take this out. We can prune back here, right? This is really long. This branch right here, that's long. And we have buds all the way back in here, so we can prune this back.
Do you get dieback on aspens?
Yeah. Yeah.
You leave it pretty decent.
I mean, it appears like up at here, right? There's like, okay, there's a bud here, there's a bud there, but this part of the branch is just, it's died, right? So all those we can take off. Yeah, so that's like, Larry, what do you prune your aspens like in the summer or when they're growing, or just in the fall or in the winter, or?
Very often during the season when they've all been elongated, I'll make corrections when something gets too long.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things I found about aspens is that Mother Nature is always involved in the design. Branches that you really like will die.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and for some reason it just happens to the one you like the best.
Right. No, I've found that too, that they tend to, they have dieback on them, so.
Todd, we had a member quite a long time ago that did a lot of work with aspens, and one of the things he found sometimes was the main stem would die. He started in the back of his nursery and forgot about it, and the next year he had 10 or 15 sprouts coming up because the root system hadn't died.
Right.
So we went from a single trunk like you were talking about to a fourth.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. I mean, that was one of my like observations on some of the aspens that I dug were like they suckered from the roots. Like you would in the spring when I was like pulling them out, or even the ones that I got last year, the aspens, they just were throwing like hundreds and hundreds of suckers from the base. So yeah, they tend to.
So if you collect one like that, and it does do a lot of suckering that first year, would it help to leave them to help the roots?
I knocked them off.
You cut them off and that went fine?
That's what I did, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't, it's, like to me, I don't know, and part of it was probably like some, like what I read in some older books, whereas like, oh, when aspens sucker, then they're gonna shed, right, the main trunk, and then they'll start growing from the suckers, and so I had been taking out all the suckers because of that. I've never left any of the suckers on, and I always tried to. I mean, that'd be a good. Maybe that's a good experiment, just to leave them.
With the ones that don't ever get fine roots, how long will those go before they die?
I'm on year 2.
You're on two.
I'm on year 2. So,
3 more.
yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, they have to grow fine roots eventually, right? You'd think. So,
Do the leaves reduce pretty well?
what's that?
Do the leaves reduce on Aspen?
I mean, on all the aspens I haven't tried it. I've just been like trying to grow them, so I haven't. But the leaves are pretty small already, so I don't know if you really need that. But I haven't tried like cutting the leaves in half or defoliating or like over time, like as you get more like ramification, having the leaves get smaller. I don't know. To be honest, I haven't tried any like deciduous techniques on these because the aspens that I have always seem to have a nice shape anyway. But yeah, I was just trying to grow them, but as I've been collecting them, I just like them more and more. So it's like I want to try, like after maybe timing on them now is, once they grow and they harden off, then do you prune back to 2 leaves, and then what happens? Does it shed the branch, or does it set buds from there? I don't know if it'll push another flush of growth. I've never seen them like push another flush of growth like deciduous have, but I also, with some deciduous that are hard to get to push a second flush, you have to take off like 70% of the leaves, which I've never tried on an aspen. Has anyone tried that? No?
Post flush hardened, pruned it, and got a second flush last year.
On aspen?
Yeah.
So what did you prune back to?
2 leaves on the primary branch.
All right.
Secondary.
Yeah, that's good to know. That's good to know. So maybe I'll try that.
So how many aspen trees do you have?
Maybe 10 at the moment. I don't know, it's hard to beat their fall color, So, yeah, but too, a lot of them, like they get galls. The ones in landscape, I've had this one 2015, 6, 7 years, and it's never gotten galls. So I don't know if that's something with trees in the landscape versus trees in bonsai containers. I don't know. What's your name?
Tim.
Tim, did any of your aspens ever get galls?
Well, I only have 1, but no.
It hasn't?
What is a gall? What does that mean?
A gall, it's yeah, it's like I don't know what the insect is.
It's a wasp, a type of a wasp, I thought.
It's a wasp, but it's like it just gets like a bump, like a wart on it, or a
It's usually was.
So I do have a potted aspen that I've tried, like I bought it at a nursery and I put it in a container just to play around. And it does have some of those bumps, so the squirrels decided to eat those this year, so. I don't know, we'll see what happens when
Right.
it buds back through those branches.
Huh.
Since it looks really healthy, and it grew through the winter, it's doing fine and grew well last year. So I'm just kind of experimenting with it.
Yeah. I mean, so that's part of the, like with doing a demonstration on this, it's like, well, like I know some stuff about it, but I don't know a ton versus other species that I work with, so it's like, well, you're kind of, yeah, it's like I'm experimenting. I'm also showing like a card where I'm a little weak, but it's like, that's okay, because I think kind of everyone is really, but I don't know too, it's like getting information from other people. It's like, all right, so Tim did a pre-flush, post-flush pruning and you got like a second flush. So it's like, all right, that's good to know. So here, so I'm just making like deciduous type, right? It's like up and out. And then this one, like this branch, I know it's hard to see, but this already had like a nice upward motion. So it's like, all right, I'm just gonna keep it up. It's like I'm just trying to make space for all these and pruning back to where we need to. All right, so this is here, this works. All right, so I don't need these two branches. So I was waiting to see how this moved before I removed this branch, right? So I'm gonna take this out. And I was waiting to see what this branch did before I took this out. So I'm going to cut this branch out first, right? Because this is really long. And here you can, I don't know if anyone wants to look at the catkins, but I like stuff like that, so. All right, and so I'm going to take this out as well. Here, then this is getting really long, right? This here. So it's like, do we need to shorten this? Or do we leave it long?
Put your hand over the tip of it. Put your hand.
Right here?
Yeah, just cover it up so we can see what it looks like shorter. Or are you thinking about going even shorter than that?
I think for sure we cut back to here, right?
Yeah, that's enough.
So here, we have nothing in here. We have a branch that's closer in there. We have something closer in here. It's like, do we take this out as well?
It's too short, too long.
This? Right? Too long, right?
I would take it right where you had it, right where you had your fingers.
Right here.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yep.
Not that
It is now.
Oh, no!
Yeah, put that one up a little bit.
I'm going to prune this back. Because this will stay up, right? This will come up. And then I'm coming up, and then I'm coming down. And then these will have a little upward movement at the end. I'm going to leave these for now. We may cut it off before the night is over.
Hey Todd, what am I looking at? What is this?
It's like the catkin. It's the flower.
It's a flower. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Yep.
So Todd, it's a healthy aspen, you've had it for 7 years.
Yeah.
What
Do you have
percent-
aspen?
I don't. What percent of the live branches would you feel comfortable with removing before you start getting worried?
Like on the, I mean, for me, if at this time of year, because it's getting ready to grow, if I came back and I cut back to 1 bud or 2 buds on every branch, I would feel okay with that. I'd feel okay with that.
Even after repotting it?
Well, no, if I had repotted this, so I repotted this tree last year.
Oh, okay.
If I'd repotted it this year, I wouldn't be touching it. Yeah, there's a lot of like interesting, like natives that we have that you don't see a lot of, and like there's Mount Mahogany. Do you still have that Mount Mahogany? It's like you don't see a lot of Mount Mahoganies. There's one, it's like deer something, rabbit something, Larry. It's like twisted up, kind of like a sage, but it has teeny flower or leaves on it. Do you remember what that's called?
Antelope brush. It might be rabbit brush, but there are a couple other ones that are like this. They're desert plants mostly.
There's a lot of bitter brush, Persia tridentata. It's got tiny little 3-pronged leaves, and it gets these amazing twisted
trunks.
It looks a lot like potentilla.
Right.
Too.
Yeah, so, potentilla, like I've been digging more potentilla, because they flower pretty much all year round, which you can't beat that, but, yeah.
It seems like they're all susceptible to dieback though.
I would agree with you.
Oak does the same thing.
Yeah. Like all those kind of shrub type things, they all tend to, I found that too, they die back. But they're beautiful while they're flowering. I mean, it's like, I remember a Nick Lenz book, and he always talked about like blueberries and how he had blueberries, and blueberries always like would die back on him. I don't know, I've never like thought about doing blueberries, but or apples, I think, have that same thing, you know, so yeah, like Larry said, there's Mother Nature's probably involved in one way or another, and like on this aspen, I'm not too attached to any branches, right? Because it could shed it, a rat or a squirrel could eat it, who knows what. I know Kathy, like you'd help the squirrels not eat your stuff, right?
What?
Didn't you was that you?
What?
You'd see how well they'd swim or something like that.
We gave them swim lessons.
Yeah, swim lessons. See, I was right.
They didn't do well, did they?
Nobody does.
Anyway.
But we have a thing to catch them.
Yeah.
Put it, like Davis would put it in the pond to say goodbye.
Take them out to Firestone or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't condone that. All right, so with this, it's the same. It's kind of just up and out and trying to make room for all this.
Are you using 18 gauge in that?
On this is 18. So when I was setting structure, this is 8. This is 8. And then I have 12 and I have 14 and 18. So. So here, we'll wire this out and then we'll go back and we'll look and we'll see if there's anything that we need to change at the moment, or if things are getting blocked out, or
Sorry.
yeah, so great. Like, do any of you go up like Kenosha Pass in September? It's like at the very top on the left if you're going like towards Fairplay. It's one of the most beautiful sights to see all the aspen up there. I mean, aspen too, it's like the longest lived organism, right? Because they found some colonies that were what was it, like 10,000 years old or something like that. It's like Kenosha Pass, Guanella Pass, I don't know, all those passes are, it's fun. All right, let me take a picture. I'm just looking from the side. So too, with this, when I'm like wiring this, I'm not even looking at it from the front, right? I'm just looking at it from the side, and I can just see right from the side. It's like, okay, you can see where space is and where you don't have space. So it's just, you can kind of make decisions from that. I kind of like that. So here we are right now, okay? So I took this actually up and around, and this is crossing this branch, but it's okay because there's nothing back here, right? So we need something back here. Then we have these. So we'll start here, and let's start pruning some of this. Like this is dead, dead, dead. There's a bud here, right? And this is a little long, so we can prune that back. Three. I know, it's like 2. Maybe this is a little long. We'll see. These 2 are dead. Dead. There's a bud at the very end, so I'm gonna leave that. Here. All right, so here's another instance where when I designed this tree the last time, I brought this back, right? Here, and I brought this forward. But this branch originates on the front, and this branch originates on the back. So when I'm looking at it now from here, this branch here should probably stay in the front, and maybe this needs to come back into this area. So I'm going to adjust that. All right, so here to get onto that, this is really, I'm gonna really elongate this piece of wire. Nope, I'm gonna go right here. Here, and then I'm gonna change direction on the back side of this. Come in here, and then that'll help me pull this branch this way. This is going to come here. All right. And so on this branch here, there's a wire scar, a little wire scar that's going clockwise. So what I'm going to do with this wire, I'm going to come underneath here, come on that, and now this wire is going counterclockwise, okay? So I'm not in that, I can't go, I'm not going the same direction as that scar, I'm going opposite, so now I'm over top of it. Because if you have a wire scar and you're trying to stay out of it, right, because it'll just get worse if you can go in the opposite direction. All right, so this has to come here. This has to come up.
Todd, do you think Jerry bent that trunk? Most aspens I've seen, which are only landscaped, they're pretty vertical.
No. No.
You find them like this?
Go up to like 10,000 feet, 9,000 feet up there, and that's where I go, and they're just crumpled.
Okay.
And like I found some that have like trunks like that, and they're like this tall, and they're just like that. So, yeah, you just got to go up high enough.
Are you gonna do anything with those trunks and dead wood?
No,
Okay.
no, I'm gonna leave them. What would you do? Shorten them?
Oh, no,
I think you could shorten this, right? Because this looks pretty young. I don't know, you could maybe shorten this too, right? I don't think, like in theory, right? Junipers, right? We know with junipers, it's like we love the dead wood on junipers, right? So, and they hold their wood really long. Deciduous trees don't. So I think this is an instance where you could, like, should this be, like all these little nubs, right? These are all little, and look how short they are, and then we have this really long. I think part of it is like I was so proud I was able to preserve this for as long as I have that I haven't
broken it off.
that I didn't break it when moving or whatever, so I've just left it.
Cause it does have an interesting trunk and stuff.
Yeah. Do you not like the deadwood?
Oh, no, I like it.
Oh, okay.
You know, do you make it whiter, or you just sort of leave it, go with a grayish, make it look over, drill some holes in it?
You could. Someone could. I don't. I don't do,
Carving.
on something like this, on collected material, I don't do a lot of carving, you know? If it was like, I have some amber maples that were like field grown, and then they were trunk chopped. And so there's just they're just huge chops on them, you know, and so on those I'll carve, but on deciduous, or most like collected things that have natural deadwood, I don't do a lot of carving on them. Yeah, does anyone here work with amber maples?
Couple.
Are they growing right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
They popped out before the Japanese maples did.
Yeah, I mean, like I have my amber maples outside. Same thing, in a bonsai pot outside, not mulched in, on the ground, and they started growing at the end of March. I guess makes sense. I don't know, it's just interesting, like these high alpine, like this is growing, and amber maples I think are native to Russia, I think. Siberia? I think that's right, yeah. So it's like, oh, okay, no wonder they're growing already.
Spa.
Right? All right, I need to bring this here. All right, so 2, when I'm looking at this, right, it's like, okay, it's got 3 pollen sacs and it has 1 bud, right? So it's like if you cut off the bud, this will be the leaf, and that's the pollen, right? So it's like, I think you have to leave the foliage or else maybe this dies back. So maybe that's part of, like, depending on when you prune it. I don't know, right? I haven't done it, but part of it, it's like, okay, if you just leave the pollen sacs, then does it shed that branch? It's like, do you have to leave some of the, like this, the new growth that's gonna come? Let's see if we can tighten this up. All right, so this is up. All right, there's a bud there. There's nothing on there. So this branch, when you're looking at this here, let's see if I can get this straight. This is pretty straight, right? So let's commit up. Up. So this too, like when we're looking at these secondary branches, this is pretty much in the middle. So I can kind of take this whatever direction I want. But it's like you have these big structural branches emerging on different parts of the trunk, but then when we have these side branches too, the secondary branches, depending on where they emerge from, you want to keep them on that same side when possible, right? It's like there's no hard rules to this, because sometimes it just, you need something somewhere where you have to cross branches or whatever. It's like, that's fine. But I'm just trying to stay within the structural hierarchy when we can. Alright, so we'll go here.
When you collect trees from the wild,
Uh-huh.
sort of land that you need to be on? Like, do you need to be in like
National Forest.
national forest?
Right, which, I know, I was reading the email, like there's permits, right? So the club's getting permits. It's like either permits or if you know people like private property, you can get access that way. So, yeah, what are permits these days? Are they $20, $10?
20, I think, 20
Mhm.
permit.
Yeah.
That's for Hike National Forest.
And trees up to like a certain height, right? Or do they specify? Like it's under 8 feet or something like that, under 5 feet?
I don't remember if they specify on the application anyway. I see 3.
What's that?
I've seen on the last ones I got, it said 3 feet.
Oh, 3 feet. But yeah, you can just, I don't know, there's Forest Service rangers that you can call. And they can tell you like where you can collect or where you can't collect, and what you can collect, and where you can collect.
When you've gotten your aspens, do you just, are they dug out of the ground, or are they kind of like in a setting where they're just in the ground?
They're in the ground. Yeah.
And you just chop the tap roots and.
Yeah, it's like you kind of wiggle them to see where the roots are going. Sorry. And you assume that there's probably no roots there at all anyway, and then you just have your shovel and you just kind of follow them, you know, to wherever you can. I mean, the thing is, like, you could have an aspen tree here, and then there's another aspen tree here, and the root's like 5 feet long, and there's nothing fine on it, so you kind of have to just, like, how big of a box do you want to deal with, or?
How much do you want to carry?
Yeah, I tried a small one last year and it died, and then I've got this one that I got last fall. It hasn't started moving yet, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah.
How deep are your boxes, Todd?
For aspens?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're shallow. They're shallow because it's a taproot. It's
Yeah.
like it's a linear root, you know. It's not, or a horizontal root. It doesn't go down. So for those, it's just like I was saying. Like I sometimes just heel them into a heat bed. All right, so here. Yeah, so what should I do with this tree after I do all this work? Like, what's aftercare on something like this?
Out of freezing.
What's that?
Shouldn't freeze again.
Right. Yeah, don't let them freeze. What else?
Not direct sun.
I mean, I think on this sun's fine. But it's like, what really is desiccating on trees?
It's wind.
Yeah. What? Yeah, so after doing work like this on this tree, you wouldn't want to repot it.
When would you start fertilizing it, or how do you fertilize it?
So on a tree like that I work on, like this one, I'd probably fertilize this like after it grew and all the new growth had hardened off. So out here, I don't know, if it's growing now, like June, you could probably start fertilizing this in June. But it depends, like my fertilization depends on like the species and what am I trying to do, right? So trees that are all refined, I'm not fertilizing those as much as trees that are in development. It's like junipers, I don't fertilize at all in the spring, right? Because especially Rocky Mountain junipers, because they are so labor intensive anyway, that I pretty much I don't fertilize junipers. But it's like spruces, yeah, so spruces this time of year, like maybe not now because we're gonna still get freezes, but depending on where they are, if you have them in a greenhouse or someplace that's not gonna freeze, like right when they're getting ready to push. So out here, spruces, like depending on how warm or cold the weather is, the warmer weather I've seen spruces here, like they'll start pushing in May. Last year I think my spruces started pushing in the middle of May. But yeah, like at the end of this month, like it'd be a good time to start fertilizing spruces. You could also do like a pre-flush pruning on spruces, you know, before they push, and then you push energy back in to some of the weaker buds closer into the trunk, so you're kind of directing the energy. But so if you're gonna fertilize, right, one time a year, when's the best time to fertilize? Let's say you only get one time to fertilize. When would the best time be? Right, the fall, because it helps trees in like going through winter. So any tree I repot in the spring, a lot of times I won't fertilize them all year until September, right? And then I'll start fertilizing in the fall. But yeah, it just depends on what are you trying to accomplish, and that kind of determines, just so we're all poignant with what we're trying to do. Yeah, but like, what else are we gonna start dealing with? Like coming up here pretty soon. It's like, all right, fertilization, what else?
Heat.
Heat, that's true. What about sooner than heat?
Pre-flush cuts like you were talking about?
Nope.
Pre-flush bugs.
I mean, right, but I'm talking like are there any diseases or things that that you might have to deal with?
Fungus on the.
Right, because we'll get rain, and then it'll get warm, and then it'll get cold, and then it'll get warm, and so that's like a lot of times, like when I know it's not gonna freeze in May, I'll start spraying things with, like, depending on what it is. If it's pines, I spray with like Daconil or a copper based. Most everything else I spray with Mancozeb, and so that's like a fungicide, right? And so it kind of helps fight off fungus, because once you have it, right, it doesn't. And your needle, like a needle on a pine, if it has a fungus issue, it doesn't go away. That scar of the damage that the fungus did is always there. It just prevents it from spreading. So I was always like doing it kind of like once I saw a problem, I did it, but then the last couple years I just started spraying preventatively. So.
Is there anything you won't spray with Mancozeb?
I don't think. So I did a test last year. I did a test where I sprayed everything with Mancozeb. I sprayed deciduous trees with it. I take that back. I did not spray deciduous trees with Mancozeb, but I sprayed pines. I sprayed spruce, fir, like any like potentillas that I had. I sprayed all that stuff with Mancozeb, and I didn't see any adverse effects. But that's me. I don't know if I would like preach that and say like you can spray everything with Mancozeb. I'm not confident enough in that yet, but
Do you cover the soil when you spray, or?
no. So with Mancozeb, what I do is I water everything thoroughly first, so the soil is saturated, and then I go back through and I spray with Mancozeb. So it's not like dry and then it gets this big hit of fungicide. I don't know if that would hurt it or not, but I'm not gonna roll the dice on that, so. here, some of this I'm just adjusting to see if I can have room for everything. I do wonder if this. Let's take this down. There's just nothing back here. I'm gonna actually, where I had this branch, so I'll show you what I'm gonna adjust. Where I had this branch, this should be the apex, this and this, because it's the highest points. But it's like, this is not much of an apex, right? And this is a little fuller. So what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull, this will come back, but I'm gonna prop this up more, and then I'll bring these down so we have a little more back here, but then I'm gonna make this, turn this into the apex, and then maybe like part of this and part of this will be, so it'll be this kind of rounded apex right here. I mean, or maybe this is the, maybe this will end up being it.
You got some buds on that top one there?
On this?
No, more towards your face. The one that you just thought you might turn up into the apex.
This here?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's buds at the tips of all those. Yeah. Alright, so I'm going to cut this structural wire back. Here. gonna change one last time. We'll take this up, right? Because this is an aspen tree, and aspen trees don't usually have these branches that come down in the back, right? So it's like, let's just keep this all up and out, right? Up and out, up and out, up and out, so. Yeah, some people were asking if I'd found a new house. So I don't know if anyone here follows me on, like people that, if you follow me on Instagram. I've basically been a homeless bonsai professional for a while because we were gonna renovate our house. I still had my trees there, but in order to buy, like I'd had my house since 2009. And so I went from a little condo that had just trees stacked on top of each other to a small house with a bigger backyard that had trees stacked on top of each other. And so I wanted to build a bonsai garden. And so in order to get like a half acre or 3/4 of an acre, which I wanted, I'd have to sell my home in order to qualify for a loan to buy 3/4 of an acre because the cost of real estate is out of control. And so we packed up all our stuff, we put it in a pod. That was January 27th. And so I still, they did renovations for a while, so I still would I'd go to work every day. So I'd still go to my house. I was able to work on trees, I traveled and all that. And then like my house went on the market and it sold because the same thing, right? It's the real estate market is crazy. So that sold in 3 days, and we didn't do it like a contingency on it. And so I had it's 3 weeks till closing, which is now Monday. So it's just like
on Zenobia?
On Zenobia. Mm-hmm. Yep. And so I don't know. It's just been crazy. So we found a place, and then we put an offer in, and they accepted our offer. So inspection was today. So I should have an email when I get home saying what the guy found or what's wrong or if, how that whole thing goes. But yeah, it's in Lakewood, and it's right by my old house, what this place is. And it's like an old horse property, so there's like a barn on it that I could convert into a studio, and it's 3/4 of an acre, so it's like the house and then some landscaping and then just the horse area, so I can build whatever I want now. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's exciting and it's nerve-wracking, and I don't know, there were times where it's like when I lived by myself, you could live with, I could sleep on the floor nonstop, but it's like, well, now I'm married, so there's 2 of us that I have to keep someone else happy, that's really important. So just like finding a place that we both like, but I don't know, I was taking trees to Adam's place, Adam Johnson, because he's got a lot of land. So I was like, hey, can I store trees there until I find my place or something? He's like, sure. So that was last Wednesday, I was driving back from his place, and I was like, God or universe or whoever's out there, just because, it's like every place we looked at was, I don't know, it's like the light's not right, or the house is just crazy look. People do the weirdest stuff to renovate their houses inside. And so I was like, could I just please let me find something? And so I got home, and like an hour later, this thing popped up. So I was like, Bridget, that's my wife. I was like, let's go look at it. And so we'll see if we'll see. I'm not getting my hopes up too much yet, but it could be a lot of fun if this comes through. It's like building a garden. I don't know, you have to understand that the garden's not going to be built in 1 year, you know. A, I don't have the funds to do that, and B, it's a process. And so it's like trying to come up with a staged plan of how, like, this year this is going to get built, and this is going to get built, and maybe this type of landscaping's in there, and you know, I don't know, because I think it'd be fun to have like an alpine garden where you have like alpine plants and the different willows, and I don't know, it's like it's just an open palette that you could make anything with, but we'll see. I don't know, I think it'd be fun. And then I have 3/4 of an acre that I can cram full of trees, so. All right, I'm gonna start adjusting some of this. How are we doing on time? Are we good?
8:45.
8:45.
Oh, it's perfect. So maybe this here is the apex, and then these come down and up. All right. All right, so this will be interesting to see how, when this pushes, how this all comes about, okay, and how things look. Because when I did it before as more of like a conifer look, it looked great, right? And it's like you got these cool pads, and then all the leaves come out, and there's so much visual mass there that you lose the whole framework of what you were making. So let's push this back just a little more, and then I'll be done.
Will you post?
What's that?
Will you post pictures of it when the leaves come out so we can see it?
Pardon?
Will you post pictures when the leaves come out so we can see it?
Oh, sure. Let me pull this forward, and then I'm done. All right. So here, I'll just show you, as we kept like going back and forth, and this branch here, right, this I brought back down. It's like, well, I was kind of doing the same thing I'd done before. So it's like, I'm just going to bring this up and just have like all these branches kind of up and out, and then we'll see, like too, by separating these instead of having like before, like this was a pad, and this was a pad, and that was a pad. It's like all the foliage was right on top of each other. So now it's like I've tried spreading things out to let all these buds, when they push, that they'll all have their own little place and room to grow into. So too, it's like I'll adjust, right? I'll adjust this after it grows, and we'll see how it looks, because the growth habit of aspens versus a Japanese maple are different, right? It's like Japanese maple with this, it's like I could prune back to 2, or any long internodes I could prune, like let's say on this, right? If this was a Japanese maple and we had this long internode here, and on this there's 1, 2, 3, 4 buds, right? 5 buds. If we came in and maybe you don't even see a bud here, but this was down here. If you came in on a Japanese maple, right, and you pruned it here, a bud would come here, right? It'd set a bud and it would push a bud. On aspens, I don't know if it'll do that, right? So we have to keep a little more of what we have. And then too, like the growth habits of it, it's like Japanese maple, they push, you pluck out the center, right? And then you get the denser ramification. It's like on this, they run and then they have like, it's not like a compound leaf, but there'll be like multiple leaves in that one push. So like an experiment too, it's like as these buds come out, it's like what happens if you pinch it out before it's hardened off, you know? Or like once the growth starts elongating, if you pinch it out like a Japanese maple. I don't know, this is all hearsay and I'm just making stuff up, but it's like there's experiments that you could do with aspens to see. That's my point, is just like, how do they respond? Because there's still a mystery, you know? It's like, it's a great species. They're beautiful. You can find that's as good as anything, you know, for a collected piece of material, but there's a lot of unknowns about it. So I don't know if aspens are available for your collecting trip, but I know when you get one tree, you can't dig aspens?
No, we're not doing, so, just like you said, the whole point is to learn how to collect ethically, responsibly,
right,
and to start with modest material. So we're gonna focus on ponderosas and just how to do it. It's not to get a world-class tree. Right?
Yeah, sure.
And like you said, I think fall would be the time
for
aspen.
Yeah, deciduous trees in general. If you're gonna dig them when they're dormant. You could also, let's say this is wired out. Let's say it grows like this year really well, and then in the spring, probably earlier, so maybe February or the beginning of March, before it starts pushing like this, if you came in and pruned it back to get a nice silhouette and then repotted, you'd be fine. If you do that with deciduous trees, if you do that work before they start pushing new foliage, you can prune back while they're dormant and repot, and you'll be very safe with that. Yes, sir.
So I really like the pot. I'd like to know more about it, and then is that the long term for this tree?
This pot?
Yep.
Yeah, so there's a guy in Iowa named Randy Hoshaw. And if any of you are on Facebook, he does like the bonsai pot sales or the auctions or whatever on Facebook. Randy Hoshaw. And so this is one of his containers. And so the man fixes, like, people from all over the world that have really expensive violins or what are violins, violas, any of that stuff. They send it to this guy, and he repairs them. So the guy he's great at that. He's also a really good artist, and so this is one of his containers. So it's thick, and he, like, the first ones that he started making reminded me of like Jonathan Cross, if anyone knows Jonathan Cross, but it's like bulky, like looks like the side of a mountain. That's what his containers look like. And then he started making like these really smooth. This is called the Brutalist Series. He's a quirky guy, but it's a really interesting tree. I think actually this tree would go well in. I think aspens go well in like a horse pot. Like with that crackle, I think they'd go well in unglazed pots. I don't think it's a deciduous, but I don't think you have to put them in like a glazed pot, right? Because because of how all the,
But if it was glazed pot, what kind of color of glaze would you think is appropriate? White, yellow, green, black?
I don't know. I would do something darker. So there's a guy from Austria named Lubo Skoda, and he does glazes, but his stuff's really crackled. And some of his are like dark green, like greenish browns. You know, it's like very earth tone. I think a earth tone container on this, if you're going to use a glaze, would be better. Like this in a blue, like a bright blue or the bright yellows or the bright, I don't know. That's not appealing to me. If someone has a bright container and an Aspen, I'd love to see what it looks like. You know, I'd be open to see anything, but that's kind of what, I don't know. He was a buddy of mine. I wanted to like take a picture of a tree that you don't see very often and put it in it, and I put on Instagram and like helped him. You know, I tried to promote him because I like his work, but his work too, like pots like this, not every tree is going to fit in this, you know, and it's like, this is kind of a different type of species that you see. So it's like, all right, I'll try to pair the two and see, you know, it's like, I think it
didn't hurt it any, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think it works. I think there's some, I don't know, there's other Aspens that I have. I like to see them in a horse pot. I put some in like a goldish, like a dark, like a goldish brown, like me and Ramondi container that looks nice. So it's like not a bright gold, but a gold with a little darker browns in it. Look good. I also put one in a dark green and gray container this last weekend. That was me and Ramondi, and that looked really nice. So
It seems like a really elegant tree to me, and I like the way the curve of that pot is kind of elegant too.
Mhm.
It looks really nice.
yeah, are the edges too sharp? So would this be better if you had a container that had like rounded edges, but maybe this same slope but with rounded edges? Like maybe would that be?
No, I think it works well with the deadwood and the
Mhm.
angles over there on
This?
the dead side. Yeah,
Sure.
I like that.
Sure.
The top curve mimics the sinuous trunk, but I think the corners go well with the deadwood.
All right. Yeah.
My opinion.
Yeah, this was putting this in this container was a little bit of an experiment, but when we set it in there, it's like, oh, it kind of works. Let's go with it. So I don't know. Any other questions? All right. Well, if you get chances to work with Aspens, do. And I don't know. This could be something we all like work on because it's just a species that is wonderful, but not a lot of people are working on it. Yes, ma'am.
So I've done some urban collection.
Right.
I have two aspen trees in my backyard, and of course they shoot up little saplings everywhere.
With aspens?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I found that and it's usually like a root that's going kind of near the surface. Of the
Yeah,
ground.
it's like the tree's here and a root goes here and a root goes there.
Top a little
Uh-huh.
bit. And just cutting some of that root off. And I've done it in the spring before the leaf.
Yep. And it'll throw suckers up from it.
Yeah.
So you dig out the part of the root that's
Well, I
running.
already had some suckers coming out.
And you
So
just
I
cut that off.
just kinda took-
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's not really any.
Yeah, there's no fine roots on there.
There might be like tiny bits.
Right.
And yeah, there's some
Yeah.
suckers, and I found it does have some dieback too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I don't know, the tree that I repotted this year that had no roots still after a full growing season. I don't know, we'll see if it goes this, it's gotta go, right? It's gotta go one more year and it'll eventually push roots or something. I don't know. It was the oddest thing. So. All right.
Hey, do aspens, since they are a colony,
Right.
do they not like being planted with other aspens that don't belong to their colony, like to make a forest or something?
I don't know.
Okay.
I've
well,
never tried that.
I did it, so I'll let you know.
Yeah. I don't know why they wouldn't,
Okay, cool.
you know, but yeah. Anything else? All right.
Thanks.
Thanks. Yeah. Thank you.